Hey everybody. Gorgeous day out there today. Ugh. Um so I was working on a couple things on the shop project here on the expansion, and I was giving it some thought, and I've been getting a lot of signs lately that it's time to take a little rest, kind of treat myself. Kind of like how I was feeling last week. Um so I pulled out the fire bowl, and I think in the very near future, one of the things they say when you're coming out of narcissistic abuse, you have to rediscover yourself. And one thing I've always loved is just a good little, it don't have to be a roaring bonfire, just a little campfire. You sit around, you have a couple friends over to talk to, or even if you're by yourself, just sit back, stare into the flames, and think your deep thoughts. It's peaceful. Um, and the world is going on around me. You know, I can't. That's kind of the point of this message. Again, discernment is your superpower. You can't be at the grind all the time. All right. It is not that it's unrealistic. I'm not saying you physically can't. Um, just be aware of the toll it's going to take. Because I did try that in the past. That's why I had 3 heart attacks. um, it's funny how this world will sell us a convenience and then make it inconvenient. I was thinking about this when I was making lunch earlier. You know, I'd use the microwave to heat something up, and it was just leftovers. But there's some irony. I had a thought about that earlier today, but not related. Um, think about the microwave itself, right? Think about back when we were kids, when microwaves were like a new thing. Back in the late 70s, early 80s. Some people didn't want to use them at all. Some said, oh, it's convenience for reheating. And then after that came the microwave meals, the ones that are high in sodium and all that other nasty stuff that'll mess you up and get you to a doctor and get somebody else making money so they can put you on a lifelong prescription. They convince you that you got to take every time you eat for the rest of your life instead of telling you to change your diet. Yeah, things like that. You have to raise your awareness. You have to take things to a deeper level. It all ties together. You really got to keep life super simple. Keep it to the basics. Every once in a while, you got to stop and reground yourself. You have to remind yourself of who you are. You have to take a moment and just do something that you enjoy. Like I said, for me, it's going to be a fire. I'm going to reach out to a couple of the friends that I got now. Find out, maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow night. Who knows when's better, but I'm going to do it. Because I keep telling myself, I can't entertain, I can't have company over till I get the shop done. Well, it's a big project. Don't get me wrong, I'm making progress, but it's taking time. But no, I don't have to wait. Because again, if I keep pushing without giving myself a chance to rest, what good is that going to do? Absolutely none. But on the flip side of that, it can't be all fun and games either, because you still got to get stuff done. I kind of sank in that trap, that woe is me, oh, there's nothing I can do, so why bother? Yeah, that didn't suit me either. I'm glad to be out of that energy. That's for sure. But again, discernment. There's a season for everything. A time to dance, a time to cry, a time to sing. I can't quote it off the top of my head, but I think we all know what I'm talking about. And I'm finally feeling my freedom again. I feel like I'm free to be me again. I don't have people hanging around me. I cleared all that crap out. I don't have people telling me, oh, you can't relax, the way you want to. That's not the right way. No, that is the right way. Because it's what fits me. I've been spending so much of my time over the last few years trying to live for other people. And it was at the cost of myself. And I had to go through that so I could learn. I can be there for people, but I can't neglect myself. I tolerated a lot of stuff that I should have put a stop to a lot sooner. And again, it was because of that lackluster energy that it happened. You have to take accountability. Some of the crap situations you're in might not be directly your fault, but it's always because you allowed it. So don't get on a high horse, when it comes time to cutting ties. Because in anything, whether it's romantic, friendship, whatever, any relationship, it takes two to tango. Again, it's a learning curve. You can't beat yourself up all the time, but you should always look for ways to improve. Those quiet moments when I'm sitting at the fire, that's what I do. I stare into the flames and I think my thoughts and I go down my rabbit holes and I ask questions. Am I happy with how things are right now? If I am, great. Take a moment to reflect, appreciate, be grateful. If you're not happy, take a moment, reflect, figure out what needs to change to make it better. It really is that simple. But nobody in the world today really wants to take the time to do that. Again, everybody's in either grind mode or, run down into the ground mode. Nobody wants to aim for that sweet spot in the middle anymore. But that's the secret. It's not even really a secret, to be honest, but it's what they're trying to keep you from. The way they set this world up. No, you can't have time to think and have energy for yourself. That's dangerous. Yeah. Be dangerous. Be a rebel. One thing I've noticed in the past couple months, I've come to realize is the power of just being authentically yourself. Again, you have to conduct that self properly. You can't let ego get in the way. When you're focusing on self, on growth and improvement, it cannot be the ego. Because that's just a waste of time. And it's very destructive, trust me. It wasn't even, that long ago. It does a lot of damage. Sometimes it's not even your ego, it's the ego of someone around you. But the backlash is enough to hold you up a little in your own journey. Use your discernment. And here's another one that just popped into my head. Discernment, right, is your greatest asset against fear. Think about it. If you're afraid of something, okay. Is that fear founded? If the fear is founded, then you got to do something about it. You can't just say, hey, I'm afraid. You got to do You got to remove yourself from the situation. You got to change the situation. You got to do something. But then, on the other hand, sometimes we're giving reactions to things that don't need a reaction because we get afraid and we don't ask that question. Hey, should I rightfully be afraid of this? A lot of people acting out of fear on things that they shouldn't be afraid of. Then you got people afraid of things that, I don't know, it's all backwards. It's all mixed up. And that's why you got to take the time to figure it out. Don't let anybody else tell you who you are. Let other people shape you. Find people with qualities that you admire, that you like. But don't be a copycat. Take what you like about them and adapt it to yourself. Let yourself shine. That's what all this, celebrity worship and stuff. Like, why? I mean, don't get me wrong. I admire and appreciate them for what they do. But at the end of the day, we're all just people. We're all just trying to live life. Nobody is above or below that. Too many people want to focus on what makes us different, and they miss the forest for the trees because they neglect the things that make us all the same. And again, discernment. Discernment is my answer to everything. It really is. Well, that and patience, but I'm working on patience. I feel like I've wasted so much time in my life in the last few years, and now that I'm getting myself together, I'm getting antsy. But I got to remember, if I want God's blessing, I got to receive it on God's time. So in the meantime, I just sit back and enjoy. I identify what I have to be grateful for, and I take the time to appreciate it. And then once that's over, I jump right back into, hey, what else can I get, to appreciate? What other projects can I finish to get me closer to my goals? How can I utilize my time intentionally? Because again, even though I'm going to take a break and sit around a fire, I'm going to have fellowship because I'm going to have friends. I'm going to get to bounce ideas around. That's like a meditative process. And that is still working towards my intentions. I cannot stress these things. That's why I keep repeating this, video after video, because I really need a lot of these things to sink into you folks. We can do so much better. We could live such better lives. We could have such a better world to live in. But more people need to wake up and come to terms. You got to do the work. It's not going to happen just because we want it to. We have to actively make steps. And you can't love others properly until you learn how to love yourself properly. And don't get that twisted. You don't have to completely love yourself in order to be able to love others. We are all works in progress. But again, this is where people get confused because they don't use discernment. They get stuck in that binary thinking. They think A is always the answer to A and B is always the answer to B. And that is not how it works. In most cases, it's not even the situation that causes the problems in our life. It's the reaction we have to it. Great case scenario in my current situation. I spent all that time chasing, jumping through hoops. Where did it get me? Nowhere. Literally. I got nothing to show for that. except for, being tired and heartbroken for a little bit. That's it. That's all I got out of all that. But you know what? In just the last month or so, when I kicked back, started going back to church, started watching what I was doing, living intently, the last month has made up for the last several years. And again, that's discernment, intention, integrity. Again, you have to be able to, like I sit here and say, I am who I say I am. It's very liberating, very freeing to live that way. I don't have to impress anybody. I just have to enjoy the life that God gave me. But I still got to remember to do it right. I got to live right. Because God didn't just send me here to enjoy it. I do have purpose. So I have to live in that purpose. And as long as I do, what I need will be provided. I don't have to worry for anything. And that has been proven to me time and time again. People outside of me, they want to get my anxiety up. Like, oh, aren't you worried about this? Aren't you worried about that? No, I'll worry about it when the time comes. Because a lot of people waste their worry on things that they think are around the corner, but they're not. And that's not a way to live. God didn't give us a spirit of fear. God gave us a spirit of love. Do everything with love. It wasn't just a command. It was a, hey, here's a gift. Be the best you. This is how you do it. And that really is the shortest way to put it. If you want to be your absolute best self, operate from love. Discerning love. That's what's important. That's what'll keep you flying straight. Alright? So, I got some more work to do. I'm going to get back to it. Take care of yourself. Try and take care of each other. I'll see you in the next one.